Peace and blessings, family. I am Astarius Miraculi, and this is day 22 of 100 days of healing. And today I'm going to read another passage from this book, The Will to Change Men, Masculinity, and Love, written by Bell Hooks. I found a passage in here that has quite a parallel to an aspect of my own life, and so I want to share it here. And it says, many mothers in patriarchal culture express their rage at adult men by directing anger at their sons. In The Power of Partnership, Riane Eisler explains, some women direct their suppressed anger against men they feel are weak or vulnerable, their sons, for example. The psychologist David Winter found that women living in countries or periods of extreme male dominance tend to be very controlling of their sons, who are the only males it is safe for them to vent against. So looking back in my own life, and I'm really grateful that I'm not hanging out in judgment or anger toward my mother for the way in which she raised me. I feel she did the best that she could do for where she was at in her own evolvement. This examination is for the purpose of gaining insight, a deeper understanding of my own experience of growing up, and maybe it will also offer something that will bring understanding to others and help to bring some healing in the relationship interchange between mothers and sons. So, as I mentioned in earlier videos, my whippings were very, very intense and long and treacherous. And interesting that in that passage they would use the term vent, because that's what it always felt like. Was when Mama was whipping me, she was venting, because she would be verbal, as she did. And sometimes the things that were verbally shared, hurt even more than the belt, itself. But one thing that comes to mind is that in her relationship with my stepfather, there was always violence there. He was always, very violent toward her. There was fights between them. And then one very intense thing that happened with my mother, and that is when she was a teenager, my grandfather was jumping on my grandmother. And my mother and her sister intervened. Mama got a hammer and took the hammer to grandfather's head. He wrestled the hammer out of her hand, and then he beat her in the head, with the hammer. And what I noticed all of my life, growing up, is that there was this animosity between my mother and my grandfather, and I also had the feeling that as I grew up and I look back at some of my childhood experiences, it felt like, Mom was reacting to the treachery that she had experienced with men in her life when she was whipping me. And, I didn't have a full reference for it, but it was just something that I just knew within my own being. And I don't think for a minute that she was in a conscious place of, I'm going to get back at the men who were treacherous with me by being treacherous with my son, but rather something that was operating more at an unconscious level. And I think that for any mother where that is the case, that they're railing against, some negative energy that they've experienced or violence, from an adult male in their life, and then they, are taking it out on the little son. My sense is that it's probably also very much at an unconscious level. That's my sense of it anyway. And so it just helps me to to see that. It makes some sense of it, because as a little one, while I was actually in the midst of getting those whippings, I couldn't quite understand why, there was such an intensity there, and why the venting was like so strong. And God bless Mama, and she's made her transition back in 2016. But thank God, and thank Goddess that my entire adult life was so beautiful with her, even though she was alcoholic my whole growing up. And that was part of the whole twisted dynamic of it. And I'm grateful for the beauty of the relationship that we had, throughout my adult life. And so if any of this, rings for you, women, and you make a conscious connection with it, I pray that, we do any and everything that we can do to facilitate a greater healing in life, men to women, parents to children, and just across the board, because it's time for us to come to a place of absolute healing and absolute wholeness, and gratitude for my whole life, even the difficult and the challenging parts, because I feel that too was a catalyst of me becoming stronger in my own being. So thank you for receiving this transmission in this moment, and may it be a blessing of insight to many, and peace and blessings always.